I mean, other companies have Mercedes said that they weren't going to continue to bring the C-Class to America because if those tariffs do enact, it's going to be too much. It's not going to make sense, and they can't put it onto the consumer because who's going to want to pay that? Welcome to Ask Alexis, the space where we dive deep into all things real estate, business, life, and fitness. And I can't wait to bring you even more value. Now, let's get started. Hey, Trevon, thank you so much for coming on today. I know that you were my first episode that I ever had, and you got to interview me, but now I get to interview you.
All right, let's do this.
So let's have a little bit of bio of who Trevon is. Who are you?
So I'm Trevon. I make videos, run the studio. I have a couple investment properties, and yeah, I'm a dad. I got 2 kids, and I got a great wife.
I love that. How long have you been an entrepreneur?
So I've kind of started my own business when I was about 21 or 22. Mm-hmm. So 36 now. So 14-ish years that I've kind of been doing my own thing. Kind of just fell into it. I didn't really... My dad was a lawyer, and so I actually originally wanted to become a lawyer. I thought it'd be good. I like to argue. I like to think that I'm right all the time. So I was like, oh, lawyer would be great. But then I was like, I don't want to work very hard. My dad worked a lot. So I'll just start my own business because those people don't work. Business owners don't work. But obviously I knew nothing about entrepreneurship. And yeah, landed up here.
And now you work every day.
All
forever.
The time. Yeah. Well, I mean, like starting the studio definitely like brought a lot more work into my life than what I was doing. But that's because that's just because like trying to build this is something that we're trying to build and scale and trying to make it bigger than me versus what I was doing, which was just really like owning my own job versus an actual business. So this takes a lot more work, and it's worth the sacrifice.
So have you always started your business with photography? Was that your road to entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So yeah, when I was like 21 or 22, I was going to school, but I started getting clients, and video was always, like that's pretty much the only job I've ever had. Straight out of high school, I worked for a studio actually just down the street, shooting TV commercials. I was actually in charge of hiring people at 17, which was like really weird because like you got like these
kids hiring adults.
Yeah, you got like these 40-year-olds with families coming in with degrees, and I'm like, nah, you suck. Like, sorry. And I'm just like some punk 17-year-old kid. But I learned a lot there, and I learned about like, I had like a mentor there who was teaching me like how to do stuff based off of per project pricing, and that you could do that. And so that kind of opened the door to like, oh, I could do this. And so I went on a church mission to Brazil for 2 years. When I came back, that place was out of business. So I was like, well, I'll just try to like get clients. And so tried getting video clients first. But this was like, once again, like 15 years ago, and businesses didn't understand the value of video. Mm-hmm. And so it was easier to get photo clients. And so I was doing like family photos and weddings while still trying to get my like corporate clients.
Yeah.
And eventually, after a few years, we were able to start just doing the video stuff and kind of let the photo side kind of disappear.
Yeah, you really don't do the photos anymore, really.
Yeah, we still do for a few clients. So like we have billboards in the town for like Discovery Children's Museum, Rosemead University. They use our photos, but
I love that.
We don't really like promote doing photos.
I love that. So I have a question for you. Since you've been an entrepreneur and not on a W-2 since pretty much your whole working career, how were you able to purchase your first primary?
Yeah, so like buying a house as a business owner can be not easy.
Yeah, of course.
Because your income fluctuates, and as a business owner, you're trying to write off as much as you can so you don't have to pay
Uncle Sam
much in taxes.
Right.
But that hurts you when you go to try to purchase a home because now your income looks like you didn't make very much, right? So my very first house, my parents ended up co-signing it. When I was 21, I bought my first house. So they co-signed for us, and that's the only way we were able to, 'cause when we were barely making any money. But that house was also only like 124,000. It was a new build, about 1,400 square feet, attached garage. Like, so it was like a single family residence, but the garages were attached to the next one. So it wasn't like a townhome, but it kind of was because it's a shared wall. And our mortgage was only like $800 a month or something like that. It was like super low. So we were able to purchase the first one, and that was before I think I really started becoming an entrepreneur. It was like in the very beginning process of it. When I went to go buy my next home, we were making more money. So
It was a lot.
it was enough to go buy what we wanted. Now, it is hard, once again, as an entrepreneur, especially like a small business, because the way that we do the taxes and everything, we could probably afford something much nicer, but our paperwork won't allow us to, right? So we just went with a lender and went and asked, like, okay, here's our information. What do we qualify for? And then let's look in that price range. And we were able to find stuff that we were happy with.
I like that, because that was a really good point. But I want to circle back to, why did you even purchase your first primary at 21 years old, even at that? Because there's consumers that are out there that are still renting that are way beyond the years of 21 years of age.
Yeah.
So why did you, instead of renting, continuing to rent?
I was pretty fortunate because my parents invested in real estate, right? So my mom was a teacher, my dad was a lawyer, and it was really important for them to buy a house and then try to buy another one and rent it out. And so I grew up seeing that and learning from them on how to be like financially responsible for the most part. Obviously, haven't been great at that, but watching them and seeing the path that they took and then kind of learning from them definitely probably gave me an advantage versus a lot of people.
Right.
And so I already knew, like, I'm never going to rent. I'm only going to buy, because why would I just throw away money? And so I was raised with that mentality. So the second I got married at 21, I was like, hey, let's go buy a house. And, fortunately back then houses were a little bit more affordable. So even with us making not very much money, we were able to buy a house.
Right. And continue on that way. And then I want to go back to where you had said that you had spoken to a lender prior to doing your taxes. Why is that valuable? Why would you want to speak to a lender if you're having a thought process of purchasing a home? Why would that be a great starting point?
Yeah, for me, I typically talk to the lender first, which I know isn't common in this industry, but I just want to know what I can qualify for.
Right. Of course.
Because, I think what happens often is people are like, oh, yeah, I want to live in like this type of house, right? Even us, like, we weren't making crazy money, but it was like,
still a standard.
Okay, like, I think we could live in a place like this. And if you start looking at those houses, and let's just say you can't afford this, especially as a business owner and with the way you do your taxes and stuff, then you might just get bummed out, right? So I didn't want to like lower my bar. I just want to know, where is my bar at? Like, like looking in the dark for it. So I wanted to talk to a lender to go, do we even qualify to buy a house, right? Without any cosigns on the second one. Can I just go do this by myself? If so, how much? Like, what is my budget to do this? And so it gave us the opportunity to understand, okay, what can we look at realistically versus like having some pipe dream of like, oh yeah, we can go live in like this neighborhood or there, and then find out we can't and just be like sad and feel like we're settling.
No, and it's working backwards, like, or figuring out where, I guess, not backwards, but like a starting point, pretty much. Like, that you can afford X, you're comfortable with X's payments that you're going to be paying monthly, and then you can continue your search that way, and then obviously go for the things that make sense, areas, square footage, and things like that.
And you're not wasting your time, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, obviously, my wife likes to look at really fancy homes that we know we can't afford, and that's not a waste of time. It's fun to look at those things, but like when we get serious about what we're looking at, like I don't want to waste time looking at houses that are out of my range, because there's no point. Like, if I can't afford it, if I can't get a loan for it, even if I think I could afford it, then it's just a waste of time, and I don't have much time to waste.
Do you still have the first home when you went into your second, or did you?
So the goal was to keep that house, but I got divorced. And when I got divorced, I let her keep that home so it can be an investment property for her. And I would go figure it out for myself. And the payments were really low. Like I was saying, it was like 700, 800. So I wanted, the mom of my kid to have a good home, stable place. And then I just moved into my parents' house since I had that option. And so I don't still have it. She doesn't have it anymore either, but the goal was to rent it out. I wish I still had it because that house we paid, like I said, I think it was like $120,000, $124,000. And right now I think that house is worth about $400,000. And it would have been paid off by now in about 15 years because we do extra payments every year on every property we own to pay it off within like an extra 10 years.
Every year you pay an extra payment every year?
Yeah,
like
so
clockwork?
I kind of do. It kind of depends on what house it is.
Right.
And our financial situation, but I like to at least get an extra payment a year in. And so I'll do basically 10% extra, which gives us a little bit more than extra payment a year.
Towards the end, yeah.
Yeah, we get a payment 0.2, or 20% more or whatever. But like on one property we have in Pittsburgh, that one, our mortgage is only like $700 on it. And so I do like 20 or 30% more because it's only like $200 more a month. And so I do that so that way we can start paying it off faster and
cash flow better.
In the future,
Future you, not current you.
Yeah, which I know some people have different rules of thought on that. Like, should you pay more towards your rental properties, to pay it off faster if somebody else is just paying the rent?
Right.
You want to take that cash flow. So
and be able to use it elsewhere.
Yeah, I always kind of look at like, okay, where are we at financially? Like, can we take that away and not even miss it like this month? Or was it like, oh, this person didn't pay their rent, and so our fund is a little bit less? Or like, hey, we have this expense coming up. Let's keep that extra $200 and just pay the extra $70 towards the payment. But we always do the extra 10% so we can get one payment extra a year because that saves like 5 to 7 years off of your mortgage, I think, which is like
so
$20,000, $30,000 in interest. So, so we do it.
It's a no-brainer, but that's insane. So, how many properties do you have?
So we currently own 4 properties. We own 2 in Pittsburgh, and then we have 2 here in Vegas. So we have our primary resident, and then we have 3 rentals, and one of them is a duplex. So 4 doors total to rent out.
What's the rental home like here that you have in the Valley?
Yeah, so the house here is a single family, 1-story home, decent backyard, decent neighborhood. It's the house that we bought when I got remarried. My wife and I bought that house with the intentions of renting it out, right? So one thing I learned from my mom is one of the most affordable ways to get rental properties is buy a house for yourself, live there for a year or 2 years, and then rent it out because you're only paying the 3.5% versus 20% when you're going to go buy a rental property.
Right, an investment asset.
So that was kind of my goal. And actually, even the next house we bought was kind of the goal too. But my wife was like, well, I don't want to move that much. And I was like, but I want properties. So she gets what she wants. The house that we bought to live in now will be a good rental property in the future, but it's also a home that we're really happy living in. So yeah, the rental that we have in Vegas, it's a 1-story, it's 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. It's only like 1,200 square feet, but it has a big backyard. And yeah, we have a property management company that runs it for us. It's probably our easiest property. Like we never have any issues. It's
no turnovers really bad, or how does that look like if you do have a tenant that chooses to not continue their lease after the year expires? How long are you seeing till it gets rented again?
Here in Vegas, it gets rented pretty quick. So I think we've only had one since we started renting it out about 3 years ago. We've only had to switch tenants once. So we've only had 2 different tenants in there. They both have stayed for about a year and a half or so. And the tenants that are in there right now, I think just renewed their lease or they went month to month. I just got notified about it. But I think that the Desert Knolls property, it was only vacant for like maybe 1 month.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then with the property management company we get rent guaranteed. So we get paid every single month. So if it was vacant for 6 months, I don't really care because I still get paid every month by the property management company.
That's a nice clause in it. And not everybody knows the different, benefits that come to a property management group. And they all offer different incentives, different costs, different things that they will or will not take care of. I guess it's just really doing your homework. How did you choose them? How did you choose this property management group?
So for me, first off, my mom wanted me to kind of not have a property management because she's like, it's good for you to do it all yourself and kind of see, but I don't have the time, I don't, and I'm too nice. Like I'd be like, oh, you can pay me half of what it's worth. Oh, you haven't paid for 4 months. It's okay. Like I'm just too nice of a person, right? To like,
no, you need that middleman.
And this is for my family. Like this is an investment. We put a lot of money into this house, right? With the intention of it making us money over time, right? This is for my kids' future. It's for my future, my wife's future. And so like I can't be as nice, right? And so I wanted a property management company so that way I didn't have to deal with any of that. Like I don't want to collect the money. I don't want to talk to them. Because I already know like I'm just too nice. I'm going to let them like miss rent and not charge them or whatever, right? And we're not in a place where we can do that. We can't just like let people stay in these houses that we've invested in for free, And so I looked online, I looked at a bunch of different ones, and I found a property management company that costs a little bit more, but like the rent guarantee, right? Like, I mean, we're not rich. And so let's say like it didn't get rented for 6 months. Like that would hurt us because we'd have to pay for that mortgage every single month still, which we could do, but it would be like, it would hurt a little bit. And so we ended up going with them because that was the biggest thing of knowing, okay, this is how much we're going to get every single month, almost no matter what. And they had some other perks that were pretty cool as well that like, for example, like our water heater went out and we just have a deductible. So like they bought the new water heater, replaced it, took the other one out, and we paid $199. So it saved us like $1,800. So we pay a little bit more in every month, but like,
it's worth it.
There's perks.
Yeah, to that extent, because now it's like a reserves. You're paying extra to have a quote-unquote reserves that the property manager is upholding or doing for you.
So I think if you do have rental properties, you want a property management company, even if you only have one or two, like in my belief, just because once again, like for me, I've told some friends to do it and they're like, no, I'm going to do it myself. And then they're like, oh, my buddy needs a place to live. And I'm like, don't rent to a buddy either. Like that's not going to end well. And then
they rent to the
my
buddy.
Friend did that, rented it to his friend. I found out that guy didn't pay for like 6 months at his last place, which is why he had to move. And I was like, hey, did you know this? He's like, yeah, but he's in a better spot now. And then lo and behold, 3 months later, well, no payments coming in. Next month, no payments coming in, no payments coming in. And now you're dealing with this situation that's awkward because it's a friend, but this is hurting you and your family, and you got to take care of yours first. And so I think he ended up getting a property management company now, but it's hard to do that stuff on your own. But I do agree with my mom that I think it's good for you to understand all the parts that are kind of go to. Then you feel less like bummed that you're giving away a percentage. And that's the way I kind of look at property management companies is like, it doesn't cost me anything. I just make less. So like I just get less of the money from rent than I would have. I'm not going out of pocket on this. So.
Right. And what are you looking to achieve from these rentals, right? Like every investor or somebody that puts money into properties, they all kind of have different goals or things that they're looking to achieve, whether that's cash flow, whether that's appreciation, growing equity. And you're in two different markets. You're in a lower end market, and I consider us a higher end market that's going to continue to get high, but we're like mid high right now. So what are your strategies? Are you looking for cash flow in Pittsburgh and looking for equity plays in Las Vegas and banking on appreciation?
Yeah, so exactly what you said. We're kind of doing both, right? We actually looked at potentially selling our Vegas home because of the equity we had in it, and we were going to sell about the height that it was at. But then doing the math of what I think that the house will appreciate to versus going out and buying more properties in Pittsburgh and doing like the rental and what I think that those are going to appreciate to. It didn't make sense because I think Vegas is a way better market. We only buy in Pittsburgh because it's cheaper, so we can afford those houses.
Right.
And the cash flow is pretty good. And so my main goals right now are cash flow. I want it to be where we have $10,000 to $15,000 a month coming in when all these houses are paid off. So that way, if the business fails, if I screw up, if whatever happens, we have a way to retire. We have income coming in to give us a pretty good lifestyle. And then we'll have the equity in those homes as well that we can leverage if we want to.
Right.
But more importantly, we'll have the cash flow. Once we get that traditional standard cash flow in, then I think for us, it's looking at, okay, now how do we make smarter moves of appreciation? Like let's go try to find a market we think is going to go bigger. Let's go find some opportunities for Airbnb, right, where we'll take a bigger risk of trying to rent it out and furnish it, right? And so, we definitely want the equity. And then for me, ideally, I think a lot of people who get into real estate, their end goal, well, not all of them, but it's like we'd want some small apartments or to be a part in some apartment complexes as well. So we have more doors and we could be at a 60% occupancy, but still be making good money. And so we want to get properties that are going to appreciate so then we can leverage those and use I think, what's it called? The 501...
1031 exchange?
1031 exchange. Yeah, I was thinking the charity 501(c). That's
No.
not right. If we could figure that out too, like, hey, that'd be even better. But yeah, so like the 1031 exchange where
you take a couple of these properties, bunch them together, go into a bigger property, which is ideal. And to negate capital gains is such a smart way, but it's definitely tricky in terms of like everything lining up and you are on a deadline. So it's definitely something to consider, but a great option.
Yeah. So that's kind of our goal at a certain point would be like all the properties we're buying in Pittsburgh, to me, they're not like equity plays. It's really just cash flow. Mm-hmm. And so once we get to a certain part, I'd like to actually sell all those and then go buy like a 8 unit or something like that. And then have that 1 unit or maybe go buy a couple of them. And so that way we have more equity play plus the cash flow. And so, I mean, our ones in Pittsburgh, though, they've actually done pretty good on the equity side. They've gone up in value. We've had them for about 2.5 years, or one for almost 3 and then one for like 1.5 years. And they both have gone up a lot more in value than I thought they would.
Anticipated.
Yeah, they're not crazy. One house we bought for $75,000, the other house we bought for $110,000. But the house that we bought for $110,000 cash flows, I think it's like $1,600 or $1,700 a month, right? Where my $400,000 house here is only cash flowing like $2,200 a month, which is still good. But like I can go buy a $100,000 property and get $1,600 a month to pay for the mortgage, pay for the property management, and then profit like $800 or $900 of that. Like, okay, like let's go try to do those because I can, take that on. And then our $75,000 house we bought, that one I think cash flows $1,400 a month. It's a single family resident. And so
those are pretty high numbers.
Yeah, which is why we ended up going to Pittsburgh because there's found some options there. Now, not all the properties are rented that high, but like for me, it was like, wait, these aren't that expensive and the rent rates are pretty decent on some of these. I found some other really good ones, but we didn't have the money for it. So we're kind of on a pause right now just because hockey's so expensive. And then building the business. So our cash flow is a little bit more or is smaller than usual. Right. But our goal is really like 1 to 2 investment properties a year until we reach our $10,000 to $15,000 when they're all paid off. Cash flow. Have
you ever leveraged a current property that you own now in order to get another property?
Yeah. So our property that we have here in town, we bought that for $210,000. And then when we went to move, we were fortunate that we were in a position that we were able to move and keep that house. Right. So we moved, kept that house, started renting it out. And this was before the rates went up. on interest rates and everything. And so everything was still like around 2.9, 3%. And we got really lucky with timing because as soon as we refinanced that house, the rates went up like crazy, right to 7% or whatever. So we were like a week or two afterwards that happened. So we got really lucky with our timing with a good interest rate, but we pulled out $80,000 and then that only increased our loan $250 a month. And then we took that 80 grand and bought that $75,000 house cash, which then brought in an extra $1,400 a month or whatever. So all we did was borrow $250 a month to generate $1,400 a month.
Right.
And so it made sense for us.
No, it makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
And it's another way of like, I mean, that money that's in that home, it's your money, and you just were able to liquidate it and then really just move the funds over into another asset. It's like Monopoly.
Yeah. And now, right, we're considering, we haven't pulled the trigger yet, but we're considering, so that $75,000 house is worth about, I think last I looked, about 120-ish, right? On Zillow, so it might not be completely accurate, but ish around there. So we were considering going and pulling out basically $70,000, $80,000 again, and then go buy another property. So we've kind of played around with that idea. I do like the idea that house is completely paid off, though, because if a situation arises where we need to, we could sell it and then we know how much money we're going to make, or we could pull out money from it again and then use it if we needed to for something.
Right.
So it's kind of like a little safety net. But that's probably the only one I would re-leverage currently with their interest rates being high.
Where they are, yeah.
Well, they're not high though, right? Like a lot of people say it's high, but when you look at
unaffordability is high on top of interest rates that aren't ideal, because if you can get people into rates that are a little bit lower, even at like Lennar right now has really good rates at 2.75 first year, 3.75 second year, 4.75 for the entirety of the loan. Now at that 4.75 opposed to 6.5, somebody could easily be saving $600 to $800 to $1,000 a month on their monthly mortgage payment, because homes are so damn expensive. Now, if homes weren't going through that giant bubble and kind of just went through the normal appreciation instead of what happened when interest rates did drop down to 3% and life got a little bit crazy, well, then we'd be in a different position. Then no, these interest rates aren't that high, but people just aren't getting paid enough, and prices are just high. But it looks like sellers right now in this current market are willing to play game. Like they understand that they can't get the stars and the moon anymore, and they have to price accordingly, and they are.
Yeah. I think the Vegas market has just kind of caught up to where it was supposed to be.
Right.
Because we didn't move for such a long time that then COVID happened, and then it was like boom. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, but like it's about where it should have been. So, which I'm happy for, because even the house that we currently live in, we got really lucky. So like everything was going up, and I sat there and I was like, we weren't really considering moving. We were actually looking at trying to do our first Airbnb in Puerto Rico, and I happened to see a listing in town, and just for some reason it felt like we should move here. And so we were going back and forth, and it's like, oh, well, let's, like everybody else, like, let's wait till this drops. It's going to drop. Prices are way too high, right? And I was like, we could talk to a lender. We could afford it. It was a house that fits all of our needs, and we can live there forever if we need to, but it's not like our dream home, but it's a nice home, good neighborhood, had everything we were looking for. And so we ended up purchasing it, and then seriously 2 weeks again another pop happened, and that house that we paid $380 for was worth $500. And so like if we didn't buy when we bought, we probably wouldn't have been able to buy that house. And so I don't know, I think some people get like too concerned about trying to like time the market or waiting for things to drop, and I think you just need to find a house that you're comfortable in. And if it's not a house that you love, then think about it as an investment property, one that you're going to buy, you're going to live in for a few years until you can afford the house or an opportunity arises, and then you just rent that one out. Or if the equity goes up in it, you can leverage that equity to help you buy the next house that you actually want to be in.
No, that's I couldn't have said it any better because my sellers right now are going through that exact thing. They purchased their home for 80 grand back in 2015, and life has hit them in different ways. They are deciding to move out of the country and need to sell their home. And they are selling their home for 174. Now, granted, they didn't put $80,000 into this investment, but yet they're going to be walking away with more than double of what they initially purchased that property for, which is insane. And that was just from them taking and biting that bullet and deciding to purchase. And literally, they were going to be making payments to stay in a house anyway, whether they rented or owned it. And because they chose to go the owning route, now they get to walk away with money going out of the country with, instead of just walking away from a lease and not even possibly getting a security deposit back.
Yeah, I mean, I think the worst thing about renting is you don't get that money back, right?
Well, then there's really no...
You're giving it to people like me, so thank you, right? But like, you know, you're helping me fulfill my dreams, and you know, like, it's not like I'm some investment, like, corporate whatever. I'm a small family man trying to do stuff, right? Yeah, we're not that. But like, you know, when I talk to friends that rent, a lot of times I think they don't know what it takes to buy a home. They think they have to do 20% down. They're scared. They don't understand the process. And when you can break it down simply and you show them these opportunities, it's like, oh, wait, I can't afford that. Like my sister-in-law, you know, she never thought she could even buy a home. And I was like, well, let's sit down and look at your numbers. Like, I mean, I'm not a lender, so I can't really tell you, but I can connect you to some. Let's look at this. Okay, you make X amount of dollars a month. Your bills are X amount. I was like, so you, in theory, will be able to afford this. Now, that's going to equate to being this amount of a home. So let's look at the options. Like, yeah, once again, it's not the best home in the world, but like, you live in an apartment and you're literally just throwing away money every single month. Whereas you could live here and you're paying down your principal, and over time, that's going to grow in equity. But even if it doesn't, you're going to get most of your money back if you ever sell, or if you need to leverage it to buy something else, you can go to the bank and leverage it if you needed to. Now, I don't ever recommend leveraging the home you live in for anything, but if you needed to, you could.
No, absolutely. It's like an extra reserves that you've just been paying yourself.
Yeah.
It's like a really nice Roth IRA, but you get to live in this IRA.
Yeah,
and there's no cap that you can put into it, which is nice. You can put as much money as you want into your home. I mean, depending on the loan structure, there you could get penalized in some certain instances, but if not, send it.
Yeah, like I was talking to a buddy once about buying a home, and you know, talking about Pittsburgh where it's more affordable, and he was like, oh, well, you know, I just don't know. I don't know if I want to like throw away $30,000 to buy this property. And I was like, but you're not throwing that money away. You're literally putting it in like a forced savings account. The $30,000 is still there, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's in the equity. You could literally sell your house and get that money back. Now you might lose some if you try to sell it immediately afterwards because of all the fees, but that money's there. You didn't even spend the money. You literally just went like, hey, why don't you hold on to this and I'll hold on to this house, right? And so you can leverage that house, and, you know, whether through a cash out refi or selling it, and get that money back. So when you invest in your house, whether it's a rental or your own personal, it's really, to me, I just look at it as like a forced savings account that actually gives you interest.
Absolutely. And it's, I can see why, if you're in a certain tax bracket and you don't want to purchase a home, that makes sense to me. I understand, but for a normal consumer, a normal W-2 worker, an average American, purchasing a home is the better way to go. And if right now you can't afford to purchase a home, then you need to start having those conversations on how you can acquire to start purchasing a home. Because what's the wait for? You know, there's always going to be good markets, down markets, sideways markets. Like a market that we're in right now, it's kind of like a giant question mark. We don't really, it's not a buyer's market, it's not a seller's market. We're pretty much in like a neutral stance. I guess we'll know a little bit more tonight, even though this won't get released from a week from now. But tonight we'll know a little bit more in terms of, all right, what's going to go on with the tariffs? Are they really going to be implemented? If they are, it's going to affect housing. New builds probably won't be getting built as quickly as they have been in the last couple of months, last couple of years that we've seen permits getting pulled, because it's going to be too expensive. I mean, other companies have Mercedes said that they weren't going to continue to bring the C-Class to America because if those tariffs do enact, it's going to be too much. It's not going to make sense, and they can't put it onto the consumer because who's going to want to pay that? So, I don't know. It's a weird time, but even at that, even in uncertainty times, just like with my sellers, if they would have waited and just rented, then they wouldn't be walking away with $100,000 to go start their life somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think that's, I don't know, like everyone I talk to that doesn't own a home, that's the part they kind of miss out on. They don't understand that they might need that money and that they're investing in their own retirements. They're like once again, like you do this, you do the method that my mom says, which is buy a house that you don't love, live in it for a few years, fix it up, then move on to the next one that you don't love, right? And buy these houses and get renters. In 5 to 10 years, you could have 3 to 5 properties doing that. That didn't cost you too much money. Now you have to move, which is kind of
inconvenient.
Yeah, like once again, my wife doesn't want to do that. And, like me, I wouldn't care. I'm like, yeah, every 2 years, let's just move. Even if
let's book it.
And even if it's a lateral move, like you don't have to move up. I know like as humans, we want to keep progressing. But when you look at the progress being more acquiring properties versus the type of property or the neighborhood you're living in, right? That to me is more important than being like, oh, look at this house I'm in, right? I'd rather be like, look at the 5 houses I own that generate me money,
right?
Versus the house that I'm in.
To the next level.
Yeah, and so I think home ownership is possible for most people. That they just have to find the right realtor to kind of help them along that process.
No, absolutely. I think that you're totally spot on with that. And what piece of advice would you give to somebody who, let's just say they're brand new entrepreneur, they possibly want to purchase their first property? What would be their first step?
I think you need to find a good realtor like Alexis here. Right. And you need to talk to a lender. I mean, that really is like you need to see what you can actually afford. And, if you're a new entrepreneur and you don't have great bank statements and track record, because they need at least 2 years of your tax returns to see what your income is, then
you're worth?
Yeah. Then you might need to find somebody, maybe a parent or a friend or whatever, that can co-sign with you, right? And that's another opportunity. I mean, I know people that have bought houses with their family members, right, where they both own it and then split 50-50, pay it off together.
Split the equity at the end of it.
Split the equity at the end of it.
Set up the deal.
I mean, for me, I don't like to share, right? Like, so I'm like, no.
No, but it makes sense if like you want to get into your first property, or if you even want to scale at that, right? Like this isn't an eye sport at all. Like real estate is 100% all hands on deck. I mean, you can do it alone, but your window, then you're putting a ceiling at where you can go for sure. And this is a no ceiling industry.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many options. And so, yeah, I'd say the first step is figure out what you can afford. Don't be bummed if it's not that fancy house in Lake Las Vegas by Blue Heron, right? And if you're in North Las Vegas or someplace that you're not happy about, like buying a house is still better than not buying a house. And then once again, just remember, this isn't your forever home. You're buying rental properties that you're going to live in and take care of and fix, and then not necessarily flip it, although you could do that too. But you're just acquiring properties that are going to set you up for success later on in life. You know, my mom has a saying that she says that always sticks with me is you either suffer now or you suffer when you're older, right? So you can either live in those not so great places and stretch it and get by to buy properties now and set yourself up for success when you're older to have a comfortable life, or you can blow all your money, live, travel, do all this stuff now, and you'll just suffer when you're older. Either way, like suffering has to happen as part of life. So you get to decide on when that's going to happen.
No, I love it. I think that that's great. I think that you said one good thing that I want to iterate. Purchasing, what did you say? Not purchasing a home is worse than what?
I don't even know what I said.
No. I hate when my brain does this, but the point was purchase the home. Stop not purchasing the home because you just don't know the steps to purchasing a home, or you're telling yourself that you can't purchase a home, which you're probably absolutely right. You can't, because when you have that mindset of you can't do it, you won't do it. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, Trevon, for letting me interview you. And if people would like to come to the studio and record a podcast or just reach out to you because they think you're a cool dude, how could they do that?
You can just reach out to the Video Podcast Studio on Instagram. We're there. Hop in the DMs.
You heard it here. Hop in it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Welcome to Ask Alexis, the space where we dive deep into all things real estate, business, life, and fitness. And I can't wait to bring you even more value.